Hi, welcome to the Diablo Podcast. We are online at diablopodcast.com. I am your host, Flux. I am joined this week by Wolfpaq.
Hello.
And by Xanth.
Hoy hoy.
And you guys have been on the show quite a few times, but not super recently. And Xanth, you're our hardcore dude.
That I am, thank you.
We weren't sure you could make the podcast today because you might have been so busy being hardcore that you couldn't stop to talk. But
yeah, too busy re-rolling characters over and over.
and you're even getting hardcore in Torchlight since you did a little interview with Max Schaefer.
Yeah, that just went up on Saturday. Was able to kind of shoot emails back and forth with Max on release day. I was really impressed with that, and that I think that's really cool about those developers is even in the midst of, a major game release for them, they're still, communicating with press and stuff like that. I was just able to kind of pick his brain about hardcore and a little bit about Torchlight, and it was really cool. I mean, especially for me, growing up playing the Diablo series and being able to communicate with the guy who made that happen is a great experience.
And which developers have you been interviewing lately, Wolfpaq?
None.
No?
Not a single interview.
You failed me once again. So anyway, we're going to talk about Torchlight a little on this show, mostly in terms of comparisons to Diablo III, stuff that it's doing differently. And then we're going to talk a little about the Diablo 3 patch coming up, the V1.0.5, which Wolfpaq is chomping at the bit, if that's not a wolf mixing metaphor, because of all the Demon Hunter changes.
Yeah.
You're straining at the leash, I guess.
Yes. I'm very excited.
And we'll get to that. Yeah, so this is not a Torchlight podcast, but we're going to be comparing the games and stuff, and then we're going to get to Diablo at the end. And Wolfpaq will be straining at the leash, as I just said twice. It was funnier the first time. Okay, so...
I still laughed. I don't know why.
Yeah, well, you're an easy date. Torchlight. So, were you guys shocked that the day of Torchlight 2's release, suddenly Diablo 3 rushes out V105 patch details and tries to get a patch test realm up really quickly? That was a total coincidence, right?
Oh, 100%.
I was completely surprised.
Yeah, no connection between those events whatsoever, right?
No, not at all. I mean, if you look at 1.04, that came out right around the time of Guild Wars 2.
Another coincidence.
Right. It's great. It's a great play by Blizzard, really. You need to keep people interested in your game, toss the carrot out there a little bit more, and hope that they don't stray too far.
I don't recall which patch it was, but there was some huge World of Warcraft patch right when, Star Wars came out or something? I forget, some other big MMO.
Yeah.
And I think the same thing with Warhammer or Battlehammer or whatever that stupid orc name thing is, whatever. But it's like, some huge Warcraft patch always seems to just happen to launch like the day before some other MMO. Which is, smart business, right?
Right. Like, you can't fault them for that. They are good businessmen.
And those toilets aren't going to gold plate themselves in Bobby's Guest Mansion, right?
That's one.
There you go. So, another interesting thing I noticed while we're making unwarranted accusations and slanderous remarks, well, I guess that's just me, actually, but did you guys know that the two recent interviews, the one I did with Matt Ullman and then the Eric Schaefer on Reddit chat, they both went out of their way to single out how Dave Brevik was the genius behind the Diablo series?
Yes.
Do you think there's any connection between a certain editorial comment by Jay Wilson via Facebook about that individual?
It could be.
I'm sure there's, a sense of solidarity between that group. But, if you look at, at least the Reddit one, they were still praising Diablo 3. And I think that was the good approach. Stick by, your original team, but at the same time, don't, deflate and crap on others too much. They addressed a lot of the weak points that they saw in Diablo, but at the same time, they didn't, blatantly kind of go out and say anything too harshly or anything that really hadn't been said. Not that what Brevik said hadn't been said before either. But, it is nice to kind of see a little bit of solidarity.
And obviously, they're not going to be dicks about it and be like, yeah, Diablo 3 sucks, we're much better. They're very politically correct, and of course they still have friends at Blizzard, and they actually think Diablo 3 is a good game, except for some features. Obviously, they're making differences.
Right, and they've always said too that they're not out to compete with Diablo 3. They want their audience, and they obviously want their audience to grow, but they've never kind of felt like Diablo 3 was what they were competing against. More that they were kind of competing against themselves.
Would you like to get a word in here, edgewise, Wolfpaq?
No, I think you guys are right on. I don't have much to say on it.
Yeah, that's great, thanks.
Yeah. It's going to be a long podcast.
It's not too long. I can still get filter in here if we instead. No, I'm kidding. You're demon hunting. That's what we need you for.
Yep.
But you guys, so Torchlight's out. It's been out for a few days. I was able to get a little head start with a advanced release press copy because I'm just, cool and powerful like that and all. And I played about 10 seconds before it came out anyway, so that was sort of irrelevant. But
I mean,
have you guys played?
I don't want to burst your bubble, but I got that too. So.
And you talked to Max Schaefer, too.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, there you go. Maybe you should be hosting the podcast.
Maybe I will.
So she's at the big boy table now.
I bought it today.
Yeah, no one cares about you, Wolfpaq. No, okay. So how much have you played so far, Wolfpaq?
I've played pretty far, actually. I'm not as far as you are, but I'm level 45.
So you're late Act 2, kind of. Or not, Act 3, sorry.
Yeah, I guess Act 3. I'm not sure whether late or middle, but I'll find out soon, I guess.
It seems like you're about level 50 at the end of it, so you're moving along.
All right, so I'll be there soon.
And you've done 7 characters on Elite Hardcore, and they're all dead at level 4, Xanth, right?
Something to that effect. I think I've put in maybe 2 or 3 hours here and there. Really haven't had the time to sit down and play it fully. But I did the beta, and I was impressed with the game, and I've enjoyed it. I do, as you had mentioned, I go straight for Hardcore Elite, which does seem to slow you down a little bit more because. I mean, as soon as you start, you are almost dying. So it does make you a little more meticulous, and it does take a little longer, but it's damned enjoyable.
Yeah, we should clarify there. You can select a difficulty level. There's 4 settings. There's, easy, normal, hard, and elite, I guess they're called.
Yeah.
And so that's not equivalent to Hell and Nightmare. It's kind of like the Player's X thing they're putting in the Diablo 3 patch, where it's just the monsters have a lot more hit points and they do a lot more damage. And you can die at level 2. I mean, it makes it a much harder game.
Yeah.
You can't change it either, right? Once you've selected it for a character?
I think when you restart, you can.
Yeah, I think once you're on the New Game Plus, I believe.
Oh, okay.
I might be incorrect on that. So somebody in the comments, please call me out if I'm wrong.
I'm sure they will. That's what the internet's for. And there's also a kind of a thing like Nightmare and Hell as well, where once you finish the content, it resets itself and everything's level 50 to start with. So it's kind of got both aspects of difficulty right from the start and replayability.
Yeah, and I can attest from the Hardcore Elite. I mean, I came up against one of the just not even a more powerful. Well, better than a white monster. Not the most powerful boss or anything like that, but. And I was running in circles, kiting them for 15 minutes. I sent my pet to town twice to get potions. And it was just an awesome experience to know that death is chasing me all the way around. And then I'm reliant on my pet to get back in time to give me enough, mana and life to kind of keep going. And at the end, I felt, vindicated having won that.
And that's level 5. I mean, you're not level 20. I mean, it's immediately really, really hard.
Exactly. And, it feels cool to have that kind of a challenge. You go back to Diablo 3 and, you can just breeze through normal and not really even think about challenge, even in hardcore. But to face that right out of the gate before you've assigned more than 2 skill points is pretty cool.
Yeah, I haven't done Elite in the release candidate. I've been trying to get through just one, trying to see all the content through. But I did that a few times in the beta, and it's just, you run out of gold immediately because you're spending every bit of gold you have on potions. You have to go back and play the very first area again. You have to farm the zombies outside of Tristram is the equivalent of this to get enough gold to afford to buy potions once you're in the next area along. It's just crazy.
Right.
And I obviously, if you build up gear over time and you twink stuff to yourself, etc., you could kind of get ahead of that curve. But
yeah,
that seems like a real challenge. Even Act 1 is almost impossible.
That's something you can do. Is the shared stash? I found that out. Doesn't care what difficulty you've selected. He'll be able to transfer stuff to yourself. So you got your guy on easy mode, passing down, hard epic items.
But there's really a lot of item requirements. That's one of the big differences. So I mean, you can find awesome stuff at level 15. You can't use it until level 10 at the best.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not like Diablo 3 you could just give yourself some super high level gems and stuff, and it's like, hey, I'm going to kill everything in one shot.
Yeah.
Not so much. But anyway, we're getting a little bit into minutia here. A couple of the biggest the differences with Torchlight. It's interesting to compare the role playing stuff. Like the thing Eric Schaefer said in the Reddit chat is they're obviously the auction house is a big difference. That's the whole economy thing and item system, etc. That's kind of a complicated issue. Where many people in Diablo 3 don't like the fact that you feel like you're just playing the game for gold, which you can then use to buy stuff in the auction house. And Torchlight is very, very different. You were complaining before we were recording a little Wolfpaq that you're finding uniques that aren't useful for you. But at least you're finding uniques.
That aren't useful for anyone. It's like plus 15 electric resistance and nothing else on the item. And I'm like, what? Like, how is that in a unique? It was ridiculous.
Aren't you using a lot of uniques at level 45, though? Because I think I have 5 or 6.
Oh, yeah. No, there's no doubt. Your point is correct. The Torchlight gives you way, way more uniques than D3 gives you legendaries, for sure.
The funny thing is they look like they're random stats.
Yeah.
They're not round numbers. It's like plus 9.5 to damages.
Yeah, and sometimes it has like.
But those are preset. I actually found 2 of the exact same shield, and they had the exact same stats. And it was they were like 4 mods, and they were all totally weird looking numbers.
Huh.
But they were exactly the same. They had like one socket. It was like plus 9 cold resistance, and plus 2.5% to some regen or something.
Yeah, because every once in a while I'll find it unique, and it'll say it's as if they pulled one of the class names out of a hat and decided this unique can only be used by this class, even though the stats on it have nothing to do with what that class might be doing. Like it might be Outlander only with like a tons of strength on it. And you're like, what? Why is it Outlander only? My Berserker would love to use this, but.
Just because you're not playing a Berserker,
yeah.
That's why. I think I found 5 Ember Mage uniques so far, and I'm playing an Engineer, so.
Yeah.
I think that's actually that's the same game system that would always determine if you found bolts or arrows in Diablo 2.
Yeah.
And whichever kind of range weapon you had, you would never find that kind. So I think they just adapted that to the new game.
I'm sure they did.
So the big point on Torchlight is character customization. That's the thing Eric Schaefer also complained about. He said they wouldn't have done it that way. And obviously, as we know in Diablo 2, in Diablo 3, you've got free specs, and you can always change your skills at any time, and you don't assign your stat points at all. And therefore, every wizard is kind of the same as every other wizard, except of course there aren't wizards in the game. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And you've played 57. This is actually a good question for you, Xanth, because you've played about a dozen witch doctors.
Right.
And you keep having to re-roll them because you get so good at them, you retire them because it's no fun to play them anymore.
Exactly.
So when you're making your 19th Witch Doctor, are you trying different builds and stuff when you get to on the way up or at 60, or are you just redoing the same exact style?
I think right now, especially after the last patch, the Witch Doctor seems to be a lot better, and I'm always kind of retooling, but I still keep, most of the same skills. So I'm not really going out of my way and trying, completely crazy builds like, Wall of Zombies, it never makes it, on the board, or, what else? A couple of those skills like Sacrifice or anything like that. They have no place for me. So for the most part, every Witch Doctor is pretty much the same for me, once it's post 60. Whereas in Torchlight, you have a huge amount of skills to choose from. You can make a couple of mistakes, but you learn from them, and I think that's kind of cool, especially, again, going to the hardcore aspect. When you have a character die, it's now a chance to try something different, as opposed to just kind of go through that same grind to get to the end game.
So you have your level 45 Wolfpaq. How long did it take you at the start to stop feeling paralyzed with indecision when you have all these skills to use and you're just like, what the hell, I'm just going to put points in and have fun?
I think I'm still there.
Yeah.
Every point I have about 5 different passives that I want to max, and I've got a couple actives that I want to max, but trying to prioritize it, it's definitely taken some time to think about things. And of course, as you've gone on in the game, even though I'm not playing on elite difficulty, it ramps up pretty fast to the difficulty level in terms of much faster than Diablo. I don't think dying in normal Diablo, like Xanth said, is not something that happens regularly, but my Berserker, who was smashing everything in Act 2 with 0 problems, is suddenly dying a lot in Act 3, so I'm sweating a lot more now trying to decide where these skill points need to go.
Do you feel like Diablo 3 lobotomized you for knowing how to play an actual RPG?
Well, then,
It's like I have to like assign skill points. Like these, I have to like think now, and there's math.
you know what? Yeah, that's a perfectly valid point. I've definitely had to bust out a calculator more than once, which was not even something I came close to doing in Diablo 3.
And so obviously there's pros and cons to this. I mean, Diablo 3, they made it either accessible or dumbed down, depending on how you want to look at it. And you can jump in immediately and do really well, and you don't have to ever think about your skills. You can always change stuff back. But then, of course, there's the whole re-rolling thing. And, the only one of us who's ever re-rolled anything, I'm betting, is probably Xanth.
Right.
And that wasn't exactly by choice. So, I mean, I've never felt any reason to re-roll in Diablo 3 because once you've played one character, you've played them all, basically. So I'm wondering, maybe like Diablo 3 is better for like casual players for 3 months, but if you're looking for long-term viability, you want the Diablo 2 or the Torchlight system where you're having to actually put in skills and you can only use a few of them each time.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, I know what they were going at with Diablo 3 is, eventually with Diablo 2 being around so long, you got to the point where there were certain builds that everybody would kind of gravitate towards. And you would go, okay, this works, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to, get strength to where I need it, and then I'm going to make my Zealot or whatever it happens to be. But at the same time, I mean, like, those builds didn't come around immediately. That took a long time, and even with each new patch, there were new builds that were being found from people playing with those skill points. So, they kind of did castrate that ability to go in and actually play with the character and really figure out how it works, as opposed to just, all right, I'm going to try this. That didn't work. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this. And then finally you stumble across something that seems to work for you. There's no penalty. And you're right in terms of re-rolling. If I didn't die, I wouldn't have that achievement for multiple, level 60 witch doctors or anything like that, because there'd be no point. Why would you make another witch doctor unless you wanted it of a different sex or something like that?
A lot of the builds in Diablo 2, at least the power builds, all required a certain subset of weapons to function correctly. Like if you were going to roll the infamous Hammerdin, you absolutely needed to have, it may not be the exact same items, but you really wanted to have fast cast speed, and you wanted plus skills, and you wanted that everywhere that you could possibly get it. And but those plus skills and cast speed weren't something that just showed up all over the place. It's something you needed a really narrow set of items for, which allowed the build to function how it does. And so bringing that point around, in Diablo 3, they don't really, they tried, and I think to a certain extent they succeeded to improve the legendaries, but I still don't feel that they have items in the game that are as powerful as they were in D2, to the point where you could design an entire new build that wouldn't work at all if you didn't have that item. Like, I don't think they've gotten to that point yet, and maybe they don't want to reach that point, but a lot of those unique builds, like Oridin and Whirlwind Assassin, you needed specific pieces of gear to make them work, and I thought that was pretty cool. I hope we get there someday with Diablo 3, but we're not there now.
Oh, I completely agree with you on that. Something like the Gidbin for the Witch Doctor, if there was some way that you could be always surrounded by, fetishes and something like that would really make you want to hone in on that build, it would be great. Something that would switch up, and maybe you would have to use, some of the skills that you wouldn't to really make this build work, but you're spot on. There isn't anything that really does that. There's nothing that makes you want to step outside what is already most effective for farming.
Right.
And I've seen nothing like that in Torchlight 2 yet, of course. But
me neither.
You don't really see that early in the game either, though. We don't know enough to even know.
Well, you don't even have the cookie cutters really yet either. And it takes time.
Yeah, and that we should clarify that. Obviously, it may be the case in a year that there's 5 really good builds in Torchlight 2, and anything else is considered stupid. So, obviously we can explore a lot and experiment in the early going, but eventually people will find better systems. I have a horrible build right now. I've wasted like 9 points in a passive that does absolutely zero good for me. So, and I'm still I've only died once in the whole game yet, so maybe I have a better build than yours, Wolfpaq.
Yeah, probably.
It's not been... The Seismic Slam is like the most awesome skill ever for Engineer. It's a shout kind of thing, and it hits everything for X damage over 5 seconds. and it's very low mana. So you can just kind of run around and like pop like 5 of those in a whole group and just sort of keep running in circles, and they all drop dead. It's really nice. It doesn't quite work on bosses that way, but I mean every trash mob, you kill 8 or 10 at a time, we just bop, 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 run in circles. But yeah, it's fun. There's a lot of different weird variety things. But the big issue, it seems like, is skill points. I mean, I've long been an advocate saying that I wish they had some kind of skill points in Diablo 3, and they don't, of course, and maybe someday they will. But that really allows you to... Obviously, that's kind of a big thing with the Diablo 2 builds we were talking about. It got to where you needed, like you were just saying, you needed a certain item, but then, of course, you needed a certain skills as well, and you had to have 20 points and your 3 or 4 main ones, and then obviously now it's got synergies, which even makes that more specific and stuff. But you don't have skill points in Diablo 3, so you never specialize in anything, so you can easily switch around. I mean, imagine if you just had, up to 5 skill points in everything in D3, and it's like, hey, I've got to keep using my fireball because now it's really kick-ass or whatever. And that's really what you get in Torchlight 2 as you're leveling up. It's like, okay, this skill's getting better every time I put another point in it, therefore it makes me want to use this skill more. And it creates a character customization thing, and it enables you to really specialize in one particular area. And that's just something they've chosen not to do at all in Diablo 3. Do you guys wish there were skill points in D3? Could you see that system working?
On top of what we already have now, or like a complete, start over, like a complete reset?
Well, if you're completely resetting it, then you can do anything you want. So it's. In terms of the current game system, do you wish there were some way that skills got better that encouraged you to keep using the same skill or specializing?
Definitely. I was looking forward to the original rune system, and I can understand maybe a little bit why it didn't fully pan out, but being able to upgrade those spells through some means, if it's not points, then through those runes or whatever it may be. To make you, again, going back to kind of what we said, focus on those skills or focus on those spells that you normally wouldn't use, and then create some sort of build that normally wouldn't function, but because of the attention that you paid to it, it does. Instead of just, again, going back to whatever you can farm the most effective with. Even now, I would love to see some sort of synergy, kind of going back to D2, some synergy between talents, or maybe putting points on top of runes that make them more effective, and then maybe tying in a synergy. But who knows? Maybe that's the expansion.
How are you feeling about the skill points, Wolfpaq? Are you enjoying powering up certain skills, or would you rather be able to switch all around all the time in Torchlight?
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of skill points. It seems like, I don't know. I'm happy with the way they did it in D3. And I feel like it's good to have variety, so it's not like I wish Torchlight didn't have skill points, but I don't know. It feels like right now it's really, really early in the game, like we've been saying, so there isn't a cookie-cutter build, but by the time people are reaching level 100, they'll be talking about what skills are good, which skills are bad, and there's going to be an optimal way to spend those skill points. On the flip side, it seems like with Torchlight, you're going to get a ton of skill points if you get one every single time you level up, and every single time you fame level up. And I don't know if fame has a cap or whatever, but it seems like you're going to definitely be getting way more skill points in Torchlight than you ever got in Diablo 2. And the skills have lower maxes, so you can cap them out quicker, which means by the time you're getting to level 100, you'll have every skill you want maxed out, no problems, at which point you're wondering, do they really add customization? For leveling, yeah, absolutely, they add customization because you have to choose what you're going to skill up first. But then once you've already done that, the skill points might as well not be there, because everything you want to invest in, you're going to be putting 15 points in, practically, because there's not a lot of skills, and you're getting tons and tons of skill points.
It takes a long time to level them, too, though. It's not like D2 where you can just put a point in every level.
Yeah,
my main skill, I think it's level 8 now, and I'm at level 49. That's as many as I can put in it. And the next unlock is at like 53, and the one after that's like 58 or something. So,
yeah, they have it gated. I'm not sure why, but I guess it's a balance thing.
Well, yeah, I think it balances and makes. Obviously, if you could have 15 points in everything immediately, it would really change.
Yeah.
That's one of the really useful things about the Diablo 3 skill system, is that they've done a really good job in balancing it. So level 1 skills can still be useful in some cases.
Yeah.
It's not like Diablo 2 where you just save all your skill points to 24 or 30, and then it's like that's the only skill you'd ever use again. But that seems like it's really hard to balance that with skill points. You know, you can if every skill is just one level, you can figure out a way to make that work with the level up stuff and the gear.
Yeah.
And stay balanced. But I mean, you know, obviously, as we know in Diablo 2, you know, just, you know, there were low-level skills you never ever used past level 1 or whatever.
Yeah, and the other thing is, I mean, I'm, like you said, we're level like 45, level 50. I'd kind of want to know what would happen if instead of spending 5 points in a random skill, I spent it in another one, but there's no way to know right now. I'm sure someone's going to make a mod soon that lets you reset all your stats and skills, but it just seems like kind of a pain versus Diablo, where you go to town, you open the interface, and in 15 seconds you've replaced one skill with the other one. You didn't need to reallocate all your skill points, or you didn't need to pay a vendor like thousands of gold just to reset one skill point. I don't want to have to re-roll another berserker, to find out what would have happened if I decided to pursue a different build. But there's pros and cons to each system.
So that's kind of the accessibility versus the long-term replayability.
Yeah.
Where you'll make 50 berserkers if you play the game for 5 years, whereas in Diablo 3 you make one barbarian and you just change them around forever. So it's obviously pros and cons. And the other big pro and con thing is the item system we're talking about. Is that obviously that's been probably the biggest complaint about Diablo 3. I would say the items.
Yeah.
Yeah. To say the least.
People.
Yeah.
Yeah, my theory on I have a 3-point theory here. We'll go with point 1. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The biggest problem in Diablo 3 is the stable economy and the global auction house. Because they wanted to have a long-term stable economy, they had to really meter the amount of drops and not make super items for everybody. And that, as compared to something like Diablo 2 or Torchlight 2, where they can just spew out sets and uniques like gumballs. And it doesn't matter because you're just going to make a new character. They don't have this permanent sense of, we need this economy to be valid again in 8 years. And they're not going to do realm resets in D3 like they did in D2.
Right.
So this is another obvious, pros and cons. People complained about the realm resets, the ladder resets in D2, but that enabled you to have tons of really cool items dropping all the time. So do you want stability or do you want lots of candy right now?
I don't know. I guess, from me, and I was discussing it, before we started recording, it gets really frustrating. The Paragon levels are nice, and you inch towards, more Magic Find and what have you. But, I've gone, since re-rolling my Witch Doctor, I've gone 1 to 60, and then 10.5 Paragon levels without seeing one single legendary. And then there's the thought that when I do finally find one, it's not going to be any good. So, while there are good legendaries out there, it is still possible now to get a bad one. So you do have a feeling like, as you inch closer and closer to the next level, that it hasn't happened yet, and when it does, it's not going to be any good. So you kind of get frustrated, and you kind of, what other things out there that would, reward my time better? And then you see something like Torchlight where you have lots of shiny goodies tossed your way.
Have you earned enough gold to buy uniques in the auction house in Diablo 3 with your new character?
Yeah, I'm probably.
Well, no complaints then. That's working as designed.
Right, but I guess when a good unique is found, and it's tossed up on the auction house, it's for some ridiculous price that 10, 20 people can afford, and I feel like I'm sitting on a decent chunk of gold, but it's still by far out of my price range.
So is it inherently more fun to find items than to find gold and buy items? That's kind of what I guess the argument
Definitely.
gets down to.
I mean, you feel like you've done something and you've found something. This is awesome. I can totally use this, and you don't even have to deal with the thought of, should I sell it and try and make more money and maybe hopefully buy something later? You can just be like, I'm going to put this on, and it's great.
You found a few legendaries so far, right, Wolfpaq?
Yeah, but I
Are you wearing any of them, or are you still all? Have you paid the gold price for everything versus the iron price?
No, I found. Let's see. Since the patch, I found a ring that was pretty nice, a set item ring that I've been wearing, and I found a few other legendaries that didn't fit my character at all. I have like long-term goals, but I'm in no rush to reach them because I can comfortably farm right now. I can't farm Act 3 yet, but I can farm Act 2, and that's good enough for me. So I haven't gone out and bought tons of legendaries.
So would you like to find lots more? I mean, I've found, I don't know, 30 or probably not. How many do you think you found in Torchlight 2 so far? At least what, a dozen?
More
20?
than I found in Diablo 3 for sure.
Well, that's not saying much.
I mean, for a while there was one place in the game where like the dungeon just never reset, so I could keep running it over and over, and I was guaranteed 1 or 2 unique drops, and I was like, whoa, that's pretty cool. Like if this was Diablo, it'd be considered an exploit. It would be shut down. But I don't know. There's pros and cons to each system. I like, obviously, finding loot is awesome, but if the loot's harder to find, ideally it would be more rewarding when you do find it. But then, like Xanth has pointed out, that's not the case in Diablo, because there are still, even after the legendary item buff, there's still bad legendaries. So I hope they can find a way to increase the drop rate of legendaries and sets in Diablo 3, because it's part of what breaks up the monotony of farming. But it's like they got half the formula right with Paragon levels, is that, yeah, we want to spend time on our characters, but then the other half is we want this time to be rewarding in more than just seeing that bar crawl along.
Well, I think, going back to Diablo 2, what they really did well with uniques is you would get a unique and it'd be good. But then there were obviously, perfect rolls on it where you'd be like, that's the one you absolutely want to have at all costs. And, you'd throw money at it or whatever it happened to be. Whereas it seems like in Diablo 3, you have, one end of the spectrum. You have the highest of the high, and it's going to go for 100 million gold or whatever. And then you have, the other ones. Like there's...
Everything else is garbage.
Right, yeah, you don't have like that middle ground. I was saying before, like Thing of the Deep for a Witch Doctor it's an awesome offhand if it's rolled right. Like you could have amazing int and vitality and crit chance, and then it's got like 30 to 95 damage, and it's basically useless.
Yeah.
So that becomes useless because of one stat, whereas the one that has, to 350 damage is worth millions. As opposed to just like a flat good legendary and then the amazing legendary.
Okay, my second point I said I had 3 points. We're talking about point 3 here. I'm just going to do point 2 quickly. I think that part of the problem with the Diablo 3 item system was that the developers had never made an ARPG before. And, they had some experience. Some people had been working on it for a long time. But they seemed like they were very tentative with the initial item system. They just had very, very limited mods. Everybody just wanted the same, like, 3 mods on an item. Yeah. Not a lot of, unique, interesting things. Nothing like critical hit. I mean, like critical hit damage, but nothing like crushing blow or the weird mods they had in D2. And they've obviously been adding that now. They have these uniques that summon demons with fire chains and stuff. But it just seemed like they were really kind of erring on the side of caution in every way at the launch, and wanting to keep things very conservative and simple so they could scale up from that. And I think that's partially because they were inexperienced, and also they wanted just to play it safe, and it seems like they played it too safe. You both agree?
Yeah, I can see that, especially, coming in, you're taking over for, a legendary franchise, and not having that background in this type of game. I can see where they would err on the side of caution, as opposed to doling out legendary items left and right. But at the same time, I can't help but wonder why they didn't look at the previous 2 games and say, well, what was working with that item system, and how do we adapt it?
Yeah, the funny thing is they were very bold in lots of other design features. I mean, they certainly, putting all the rainbow colorful unicorns and stuff, but in good ways as well. In terms of, like, the skill system is very interesting and bold, and they really change. I remember when they still had skill points in the game, Jay Wilson was saying things like, we want each skill point and each trait point, the passives, to make a really big difference. It's not 2% more, it's 25% more, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So it's weird that somehow that mentality didn't get translated into the items. And especially the stats on the uniques and the sets were just junk to begin with, and that was something like Azure was bitching about like 2 years before the launch. Right. They had those website previews, and it's like, hey, it's 27% damage on the Wind Force. People are like, no, wrong. And they're like, oh, it'll be very different when it launched, and then it was 28% when it launched, and it still sucked.
Didn't they say that items were one of the last things they were doing before they launched, too?
Yeah, they're just getting to it now,
right.
so there you go.
Just like PvP.
But, I mean, itemization has to be the last thing, because everything else is dependent upon it, or it's dependent upon everything else. You know, if it's something the monsters all double in hit points, all the items have to be redone anyway, right?
Yeah.
So,
right.
But it's weird they didn't do a better job of it with that. And, you know, not to echo Dave Brevik or something, but, you know, you look at who was designing the game, and it was people who hadn't made an ARPG, whereas, like, Torchlight 2, all the items are done by Eric Schaefer, who did, you know, Diablo 1 and Diablo 2 items previously,
right.
as well as Hellgate London, so it's not all good. But,
yep.
well, nobody didn't buy Hellgate London because of the item system. It was other things, you know, but, I mean, you know, whether or not Torchlight is perfect, he certainly has had experience at it and kind of knows what he's doing. And so if it's bad, he has no excuse, whereas the D3 guys are kind of learning on the job.
Right. Trial by fire.
Oh, the point I was going to add on point one we were talking about a second ago, but we've brought this up on a couple of recent podcasts, but the way you can make more unique items drop, I mean legendary items drop, is to have some kind of binding, and bind on equip or bind on account.
Right.
And now they've announced the details of this Infernal Machine, and you're going to get a special legendary ring that it binds on account. So would you guys be interested in seeing a higher drop rate for sets and legendaries in Diablo 3, but there's some sort of binding system, maybe every other one binds, or the very highest level one binds, or something. So you get more, but you don't need the auction house to obtain it.
The thing I saw that I was, before 1.04 came out, and there were those supposed leaked patch notes, there was after your 500th champion or elite, you would get a bind on account legendary.
And we all like that system better than what actually happened.
I thought that seemed to make sense, you know, because it seemed to fit with this whole Paragon system, you know, as well, because you're slowly progressing. And I could be there on my Witch Doctor, just counting down how many more I had to go until I knew I would find something. Could I find something in between in that 500? Of course.
No, you can't.
Not at this rate, no. But
hypothetically,
yes. Exactly. It's all hypothetical at this point. I'm thinking I'll be level 15 or dead before it happens. But, like, knowing that I would have the opportunity, that didn't seem like it would be too game-breaking either. 500 is a lot, and that's a lot of farming to do. And then even if you had people who are specifically farming, you know, a lot of these champions, it wasn't going to flood the economy. It seemed like a really good idea.
So, Bondage, Wolfpaq, how do you feel about it?
You know, I read those same patch notes. I didn't like the system. I can just see everyone farming Act 1 499 times, and then like, all right, Bale, go to Act 3, quick, you know? Get the... But, I mean, granted, there would be ways...
Bale was in Act 5, by the way.
Oh.
There would be ways to get around that, but I don't know. I feel like it's just... It's a tough thing to do. I really don't like binding for the Diablo series. There was no binding of any sort in Diablo 2, and I would not want it at all in Diablo 3. I would hope they could find a better way to get more items in our hand, even if it does end up impacting the economy a little bit, because D2's economy obviously was terrible, but it had, and we all enjoyed it, we all played it, we all, it's the reason we went out and bought D3. I feel like it's okay if the economy suffers a little bit, and I'm stumbling a lot, but the point I'm trying to make is it's okay for the economy to go down if it means the players are enjoying the game more.
But Blizzard doesn't make any money.
Don't we all think the economy sucks now anyway, though? I mean, as we've been saying, it's either a fantastic $100 million item or it's crap.
Right.
Well, I think that's an exaggeration.
Currently with rares. Well, yeah, it's not exactly that way. Sometimes there's just, it's medium crap. But
well,
but generally speaking, if you find something you think this is vendor trash or it's worth $1 billion. I mean, there's not a lot of mid-range of stuff.
Right. Well, it's always
and you can buy fantastically good stuff for almost nothing.
And it's one stat away from being amazing. And I imagine...
And it's 1,000, and you'll never find anything as good as that in 100 hours of playing.
And I imagine the softcore economy is a little worse because...
little.
Okay, we'll say a lot. I don't go into that realm too often. But at least in hardcore, you could find something that's level 50, and somebody still might buy it because they're making their way back up. In softcore, once you've capped out at 60, it doesn't really matter. So at least, the hardcore economy can pull items from levels 1 through 60, whereas if you're farming Inferno and you pull up a level 57, chances are you're just going to leave it on the ground because it doesn't matter.
Well, you can get 1,000 gold for it if you sell it.
Yeah, but, if my inventory is almost full, I'd rather save that spot for something that's above 60.
That'll never happen. That reminds me, one of the patch changes, now they've reduced the ID time to 1 second on rares. Is that like the best change ever?
It's pretty awesome.
I mean, it's not the ID all button we wanted, but...
I think it'll be great. It'll cut down a little bit. But I still want an ID all. It's been there for, the past couple games. Why not just put somebody in who can do it?
Because he's dead. Because the butterfly freaking queen killed him, that's why.
Well, he should do it until he dies if you're, farming the early parts of Act 1. And then, I don't know, Tyrael? Maybe?
Yeah. Spoilers! No, probably not. Okay, so my third point on the whole item system we were getting to earlier is that the stable economy and the boring initial item system combined, and that was really a problem in D3 because Inferno was actually hard. Diablo 2 wasn't hard in hell. I mean, it was kind of hard, but you could get by with junk, or, a couple of good items and other stuff was crap. Right. The problem in D3 is the items, you didn't see any legendaries, it was super, super hard to get good rares, and you actually needed them. That's what really kind of made people pissed about it, I think. And it seems like they're also addressing that now, and that they're making, with the monster power system, they're making it less difficult in Inferno. So you'll be able to farm Act 3 in V105 with your same gear, Wolfpaq, where you said you can now only do Act 2. Yeah. Not in Monster Power 6, obviously, right. But you can do it.
Any speculation as to this being a reaction to Torchlight allowing you to choose your difficulty?
No, they've had that forever in Torchlight.
Well, I'm just saying, Torchlight's out now, and now we got Monster Power.
If it's really more a sense of the Diablo 2 Player's X thing,
right.
Though, because it doesn't change the difficulty, it just gives them more hit points, basically. Yeah. And they get more hit points, they take longer to kill, and they give you slightly better chance of more stuff. So it's not really a difficulty as much as it is a way of efficiency of farming, as Jake Wilson's been saying lately. Mm. So any other Torchlight or D3 related thoughts before we get into the V105 stuff? And they both leap in. Xanth.
Okay, since I get called on.
Because you're hardcore and you talk to Max.
Yeah, well, that's a gift.
And Wolfpaq's batting cleanup. He can fix all your mistakes.
Exactly. I guess, I think for anybody who hasn't tried Torchlight, I definitely recommend it. I was originally put off by the graphics a little bit because it's a little more bright. But after maybe 5-10 minutes, I didn't notice it. I was really enjoying myself. And it does give me kind of a dilemma as to, do I log into D3 or do I want to play more with Torchlight? And I think that's great. I like having that problem, and I think that's what Torchlight wanted. They want people to really get sucked into this game.
Not to sound like a total fanboy, but there's some really cool level design in Torchlight too, especially later on.
And it's random.
Yeah, the outdoor, I like the layout is awesome too, but there's really way more variety of cool level types than I was expecting. It's much more than Torchlight 1 had. Act 3 is awesome. Xanth's there now, the other guy. Wolfpaq is there now. And, it's all gloomy and foresty and creepy and stuff. There's a whole point with this village that's all ruined and overrun by werewolves. It's actually quite creepy.
Yeah.
And there's some really awesome caves. There's just really interesting monster and level. So yeah, I would agree with you, Xanth, based on the beta. I thought that the level design was a little bit limited, and a little colorful, but it really is more varied and dramatic and interesting. The Act 4 is awesome. It's all metal cages and stuff and fire below it. It's like mecha hell basically. But it's an interesting take on that. But anyway, what was your Torchlight thoughts?
I'll agree with what you guys said. You guys should play it. If you like Diablo 2, you're definitely going to love it. But we were giving Diablo 3 all this crap about their item development, and I feel the items in Torchlight are worse so far. I haven't seen any unique only special, that you can design a build around. We all love that in Diablo 2, and I haven't seen anything even remotely approaching that in Torchlight so far, like a mod that says, oh yeah, you can totally play your Berserker in a different way if you get a hold of this, which is fine. Not all You can't ask for everything. And just finding uniques with 1 or 2 stats on them is just a huge disappointment. It's like Diablo 3 all over again. Like, can't we just learn this lesson and move on? Like, when I find a unique, it should be awesome. Like, that, it shouldn't, I don't know. I don't like the fact that the uniques and then the rares just feel like slightly better magical items some of the time. Other times, I identify a unique, and it's like an explosion of mods. And I don't know why. Or, I mean, I guess that's part of being random, but I wish there would be a little bit more consistency. It was one of the things I loved about Diablo 2 is when you found, a unique Great Helm, you knew what that unique Great Helm was going to have. And it's sure there could be some variation, but I just haven't seen that consistency yet in Torchlight. And I was hoping that the items would be more improved. And, set items are just rares that happen to get tacked on. Oh, also uniques can be set items, which is strange. But anyways, it's just my one criticism. I still think you should play it because it's very fun.
And obviously we're very early in the game. I mean, you can't...
True.
We're not even through normal yet, so who knows what we'll find in terms of items
True.
later.
Very true.
Okay, Diablo 3 patch V105. We're going to do this in not huge depth because we've been talking about a lot of other stuff, but one of the biggest changes, obviously, difficulty nerfs. We've kind of mentioned the monster power thing. And you guys, are you curious for this, Xanth? Obviously, you've had, being as you're in hardcore, it actually matters if you die. So are you going to be playing it on monster power 0 and then trying to get to level 100 Paragon or something?
Yeah, I think I'm going to start out on 0 and just kind of feel it out and just, see. Yeah.
Was something in your throat, Wolfpaq? I heard a cough there.
Wow. Didn't expect that, Flux.
Warcraft. And attack.
Wow. No, I'm going to jump in at level 9. No, I'm going to start with 0 and see where that takes me. I'm really just farming Act 1 right now. Probably can go into Act 2 and see where that takes me. Last time I went at Act 2, I died, so I'm hesitant on that. But I really just kind of want to, from the hardcore perspective, play it safe for a little bit, like a pussy, as you said.
Given that my highest level hardcore is like 43 and I haven't played it in 2 months, you should be the one coughing at me, frankly.
Yeah, I mean, I want to see exactly what it entails for difficulty, and it would be kind of nice to clear Inferno on hardcore, but I do feel like if I do that, it's kind of cheapened by the lack of the monster power and by decreasing the difficulty.
Are you excited for Monster Power, Wolfpaq? I'm really curious to try like a level 1 character and put it on Monster Power 10 to see what the hell it's like. that could be the Torchlight Elite simulation there.
Maybe. I'm excited for it. I'm probably going to start off low myself to see how much magic find I can put on and still be in Act 3. Try to find a good balance. And we don't have the details yet, right, on like how much of a bonus it is to be farming on monster level 5 versus 1.
They're not giving us any specifics.
Yeah.
They've said it'll basically raises their hit points, and you'll have a chance to get 2 items from regular monsters. But they've said nothing about what it does to bosses.
Yeah. So I'm just holding my expectations back for now. I mean, the same thing for the Ubers. I'm just not sure what the details are, so I'm not getting my hopes up. I just know that it's coming with a bunch of skill changes that are awesome for Demon Hunters. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah, you've been waiting 45 minutes to talk about that. They did say that Monster Power will let you get a higher magic find than the current cap, so you can get over 300%. How much higher? Hope nobody knows.
Right.
So in theory, if you're playing on Monster Power 6 or something, maybe you have 450%, and you have a much better chance of getting uniques and legendaries and sets and stuff. But we don't know. I guess we're waiting for the patch notes to get the actual math. Probably they're still tweaking it. Did either of you guys get on the patch test realm this weekend to test it out? Oh wait.
Yep.
So, Infernal Machine. You think it's going to be like the biggest thing in the game, or we're going to be farming it like Uber Tristram in D2, or is it going to be like something you do once in a while just sort of for the hell of it?
I feel like it's going to be like Windseyshire, where you do it once, you get your ring, and that might be it. I don't know. It just, it's just a ring, not to discredit it, but I don't know. It just doesn't feel, as awesome as I thought it was going to be.
Well, in theory, there's lots of boss fights in it, and they'll all be dropping, fat loot.
Yeah.
So it's not like you just get this one ring, but maybe the whole challenge of it will be fun to do. I mean, we don't really know the details on it yet.
I feel like people are still going to flock to what's more efficient. I don't know. I mean, if it's more efficient, maybe.
Yeah.
You were going to jump in there, Wolfpaq?
Oh no, I was just going to say, yeah. If it's more than just a ring, I'm sure people will do it. If it's, but again, it's hard to really speculate without any details at all, other than what we've talked about. So I hope that it's something else we can do, other than just hopping in Act 2 or Act 3 or Act 1 and then running your path and moving on. Like, I really hope it's something. Maybe you can't do that every time. Maybe it takes a while to get the mats to spawn the Ubers or whatever. I don't know anything about it, but I'm hoping it can become like a regular thing to do, other than just farming XP and your path.
Experience shrines are back in Inferno, which obviously should have been done as soon as the Paragon level came in, but they didn't think of it.
Right.
And 2 new shrines. Empowered Shrine gives you better resource generation and reduced cooldowns, and Fleeting Shrine gives you increased movement speed and pickup radius. Neither of those sound like they're a real game changer, but, kind of nice, right?
Yeah.
It's always nice to maybe see something a little different. I don't know. They don't really float my boat, I guess.
Another change that seems interesting. Followers, pets, and summoned creatures will no longer attack enemies that are in an idle state unless the player is within 10 yards of the enemy. In other words, treasure goblin.
Yeah.
Is that worth it? Would you take a path just so your goddamn enchantress wouldn't pop the treasure goblin from 80 yards away and watch him run off into a boss pack? I think that would be, just by itself, would be a decent patch.
Yeah. So. I mean, as a witch doctor with pets being viable now, I've gotten into some pretty close situations as a result of them just pulling whatever they can get close to.
There's some new in-game banner stuff. You guys excited about that? Okay, no one cares.
Nope.
Okay, and the big thing, lots of class changes. Looks like the Barbarian got a ton of changes, and the Monk got a few, and the Witch Doctor and the Wizard got a bunch of them. I don't see anything for the Demon Hunter, though. Oh, wait, I do, actually. So go ahead, Wolfpaq. We talked about on the Wolfpaq Hunter show, you know what I mean? We talked about how we thought they were kind of limited in their builds, and we wanted some more defensive stuff and some damage mitigation options, and that's like they're kind of giving us those. So tell us what you think.
Well, there's 2 changes that I'm really, really excited for, and first one is exactly what you said, passive mitigation. Every other class in the game has a way to get it. Demon Hunters didn't, and that was a big problem, especially when they made all those changes focused on making glass cannon builds way less viable. So the first one is the Boar Companion, the skill rune, which is giving us a passive life regen per second, which isn't that exciting, but 15% bonus to all resist as well is pretty cool. And especially since...
And they're making the boar now as a tank, too, which is going to be interesting.
It's been redesigned to be more durable.
The boar, the wolf, and the spider are like Valkyries, in theory.
Yeah, so the hope is that you can have that boar out, get the bonus to your resistance, and 15% isn't a lot compared to what the Barbarian Shout used to give and the Wizard Energy Armor used to give, but they have severely nerfed both of those skills as well because they felt like they were too mandatory. And I mean, they're absolutely right. You saw the chart if you read the blog. It's like something like 87% of Barbarians were running Warcry with impunity, and I'm sure that it was similar for Wizards. So anyways, I think this will be a very viable, it's sort of a tank and some survivability boosts all in one. And I'm not the biggest fan of the Shadow Power change, but I'm not sure how effective that'll be because, well, especially since the 65% damage reduction has been reduced to 35%. But again, across the board, they're reducing damage, so we'll really have to experiment with it to see how it plays out. And
so Shadow Power previously was 20% lifesteal for 3 seconds, and it's now 15% lifesteal for 5 seconds.
Yeah, and
so it gives you a little more duration on it.
Right. That's correct.
Had you ever used Shadow Power previously, or you just wished it worked differently than it did?
I tried it a couple times, but it seemed a little too redundant with the Vanish, or whatever. I'm blanking right now on the skill name. Smokescreen. It seemed a little redundant with Smokescreen, so I pretty much left it off my bar. And also, the Perfectionist passive skill now gives you life, armor, and resistance boost of 10%, which is pretty nice. I mean, it's good that they're giving us the understanding that some Demon Hunters, they want to play tanky, so they're giving us that option. And the second change, which was really exciting until I saw the details, was that they were moving Sentry from discipline cost to hatred cost, which a lot of people have proposed this change because it's a purely offensive skill. Why is it taking from our defensive resource? But then they're allowing us to have 2 out at once, which is sort of a throwback to the Trap Assassin from Diablo 2, which is, again, really exciting, especially since they changed the custom engineering passive to allow you to have 3 out, up the max count. But then they put a cooldown on it, an 8-second cooldown, which makes no sense at all because, I mean, how long? I don't play hardcore Xanth, so this is coming from a pure. This is coming from a pure softcore perspective. But fights don't last 8 seconds. Fights last, some do. Obviously, the harder boss fights will last more than 8 seconds, but the Traps Assassin, I mean, I don't know if you ever played one in Diablo 2, but what you did, you ran in, you held down your right mouse button until there were 5 traps on the floor, and then you just ran in circles while the traps did all the work for you. So you can't really do that. You'll lay 1 trap down on the floor, and then you'll use your main skills to kill all the monsters, or your sentry, and then your sentry will just sit there by itself. I don't know. I don't understand the cooldown.
Maybe it's purely a boss thing while you're kiting.
Yeah, but
you'll never use it on trash mobs.
Yeah, exactly. So you're right. It is just a boss thing, but still, I mean, some bosses die in less than 8 seconds. In which case, and if you want to have 3 out, that's 16 seconds. So I just don't know. That 8-second cooldown sort of killed the excitement I had for this change because more skill variety means more build variety, but I don't see anyone focusing on Sentry other than maybe hardcore. Maybe it'll work for hardcore when your sentries are giving you damage reduction and life regen.
Even 8 seconds though does sound too long. I know you can ruin it to drop it down to 6, but that doesn't seem like that big of a difference.
No.
Did you notice that strafe's been improved though? You can move 10% faster with it now. I mean, that's going to make. I'm sure that'll be. The 0.01% of people who use strafe are just going to be overjoyed, right?
I skimmed right over that.
I've done kind of nice. Vault now breaks Jailer, which is kind of a cool thing.
That is cool.
Of course, you'll still be screwed by Wallers, but at least it's something. Yeah. Given that they're we had Trail of Cinders and it was all exciting and joyful for like 2 weeks, and now it's been nerfed back to nothing.
Yeah,
but
not usable.
I guess I still don't think I could use Vault instead of Smokescreen just because Wallers and Arcane Sentries and shit like that. But
yep.
But,
well,
something.
Recently I've been taking Vault just because for farming it gives you so much movement speed, especially and I take the 60% boost for 2 seconds after using it. It helps you get around real quick because it seems like the most...
Yeah, if you're farming, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So the most efficient way to farm is to have high movement speed and monsters that you can just mow down. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. So I have it on my bar anyway, so I'm excited to use it more. I'll just be taking off Trail of Cinders and using something else.
So you're a big fan of the Witch Doctor, Xanth, and I see that they've improved Spirit Barrage and Wall of Zombies. I'm sure that's going to radically change your playstyle in 105.
Totally. I will completely not use them still.
Okay, awesome.
No, I mean, most of the Witch Doctor stuff that they put in...
you got like 85 skill changes in the last patch.
Exactly, and that's why I was not too surprised to not really see much about them. The only big thing is Jungle Fortitude going from 20 to 15% damage reduction, but with the new changes to monster power and stuff like that, and they'd already mentioned that defensive skills were going to be going down, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. So the Witch Doctor I'm not too concerned about. The Monk as well, I mean, going through, it's still pretty minimal. A lot of it, again, going back to the whole defensive thing of, the skills are going to get a little bit weaker. I thought near-death experience being reduced from 90 to 60 was interesting. I'm curious as to why they decided that, considering the Witch Doctor's skill that will bring you back from death is still a 90-second cooldown. But for the most part, I guess there still wasn't much that made me want to go and jump back on my Monk, unfortunately. I think the one thing that I've noticed, though, and I'm still waiting on it, I wrote a column a little while ago. I'm really hoping for something that really incentivizes playing with other people. Like, I still feel like, this is going to be a great patch, and, it's going to be more fun to play, but I still don't feel like there's a need to play with anybody else yet.
Well, you missed the change. They dropped the additional hit points from 75% to 70%.
To 70. Oh, that's right.
Yeah, obviously.
Wow. Damn, my friends just blew up
right.
there.
I guess, like, one of the big reasons I bought this game was, not only because of the Diablo series, but because I liked playing with other people. And I still don't feel the need to do that yet. At least in Diablo 2, you were getting more experience. You had, better drops, stuff like that. And you just don't have that now. I feel like I would rather just run through my basic, Magic Find run myself than have to risk going into a public game. And, I mean, especially as you get into the higher levels in hardcore, too, there's not that many public games that you can even join anyway, because, one, you don't know what quest they started on to run it, and if you join the game, you don't know if they're actually doing the quest or if they're going back and they're doing, a legitimate run.
Probably the latter, actually, or probably the former.
Right.
It's funny because we have now Monster Power, which is simulating Player's X. And, of course, Player's X was, literally simulated additional people in your game, which you could do to boost it by yourself or to make it more challenging with your friends playing in D2. And in D3, it enables you to simulate playing with other people, which no one's ever actually done. So it gives us some sense of this.
Right.
But it's funny, they brought Player's X in, and they didn't even call it Player's X. They called it something different, just knowing that there's not even any reason to simulate other people.
Right.
Because that's never actually happened yet. Maybe I'm a little bitter today.
Apparently.
I'll agree. I mean, I've gone into some multiplayer games, and it's fun to play with other people, but you still have that, that itch in the back of your head, well, couldn't I be doing this more effectively without these other people? Okay, that guy's going to town again. Now we're waiting. Oh, that guy needs to repair. Now we're waiting. Oh, are you IDing an item? Oh, 10 of them while I'm standing here killing stuff? Great.
Well, it's only 10 seconds now.
Well,
that's one benefit. It used to be 30 seconds.
Right. But you just feel like you don't need them. And I don't know, I kind of miss joining a game and being excited that there was a druid or a paladin or whatever it is, and knowing that you're going to be more effective and everything was going to be better as a result of the amount of people you had in. Or being in a 7 or a 6 person game waiting for the other 2 to show up, because then you knew you were getting the full effect of everybody being there.
I'm envisioning 3 more patches. It's going to be multiple people join the game. Monsters suffer a minus 90% hit point thing, and plus 100,000% chance to find legendaries. I'll be yeah, it's still not as good as D2 though. I miss druids. I miss life sage oak tree thing. Battle
Where's
orders,
the necromancer?
Yeah. There's a ton of changes to wizards. I haven't played my wizard in forever, but I mean, there's as many skill changes for the wizard as there is for the demon hunter. They're not changing the whole overall system of it much, but it seems like they're really trying to make. Maybe they're tired of every single wizard build just being, the run around with, whirlwinds and stuff, whirlwind, frost, nova, etc. You were doing that build for a while, right? Wolfpaq, have you still been doing that?
I haven't played my wizard in forever, but
well, there you go.
that is the build I left him on.
Have you read the patch notes for 105, and are you excited to do? I don't know. I'm trying to find something interesting here. Ooh, Ray of Frost is a new thing. No. Movement speed reduction from 60 to 80%. Cha-ching.
No, not so much.
Pretty much a demon hunter out, and then. So, any last thoughts on 105, guys?
I'm excited, and and there still are problems, of course, but it is getting better with each patch, and I think I remember you and I, Flux, doing that podcast maybe a little shortly after release. And just saying that people needed patience and the game was going to get better. And I think we're seeing that. And obviously, we can talk for an hour and we can find things to pick at, but we have to admit that the game we have now is much better than what we had 2-3 months ago, and hopefully in 2 or 3 months' time is even better than what we have now. Yeah,
we have the game improving, but do we have the patience? That's the thing.
Right.
I'd like to echo what he said. It's getting better. It's hard to get really excited about 1.05 without knowing the details of either of the 2 major system changes. But on the other side, we're getting 2 major system changes, and that's exciting. It is exciting. Hopefully, they're worth getting excited for, but that remains to be seen. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be signing on. I know that my friends list has been more populated of late than it has been for anecdotal counter to what Xanth was saying. But, it's wait and see kind of thing.
Why you know like Wizard? You just got sick of the build? You didn't have enough critical hit chance, or
I
what?
guess it was an unintended consequence of Paragon, but playing things other than my Demon Hunter just doesn't seem as rewarding.
What is your Paragon level?
It's only 12.
Well, that's 36% magic
Yeah,
find, so there you go. What is your total magic find with your gear? Are you up to 300% or close?
I think I'm at about 280.
So do you think... Yeah, we talked about this on the last 2 podcasts, actually, but the whole Paragon thing is you just want to play your one character now, you know? Everyone else becomes an alt, because it's like, well, this one's getting better.
Yeah, exactly.
Can't has more MF, you know? So...
Yep.
It's the wowification of D3 continues, where everyone just has one main character and a bunch of alts that no one gives a shit about.
Until you die, then it's nice to have one.
So speaking of WoW, the whole Panda thing's coming out on Tuesday. Are you guys all excited about that?
I didn't even know it came out on Tuesday until you told me.
Yeah, I knew it was coming out in September, I think.
Is it still September? Barely. So thanks for your time, guys. Any last comments? Just can has and want?
Yep. So, sounds good.
Torchlight 2 tiding you over till V105?
Definitely.
Any let's take wild estimates. When will V105 be released?
Ooh, I'd say they wouldn't release it on the same week that they're putting out the new WoW new WoW game. So maybe the week after.
So you're
2
thinking
weeks.
like a week and a half, 2 weeks from now?
I'd guess a week from this Tuesday. Yes.
Halloween. Mark it
down.
Halloween's 5 weeks. I think it'll be sooner than Halloween, but given that the PTR was stable for like 45 minutes when the patch went up, maybe that's a bad sign. I hope it's just the PTR is a different thing.
I would assume they just have a small amount of servers for it and weren't expecting that kind of rush.
Do you think that we're going to see PvP this year?
Yes. Via data mining or the actual game?
Live servers.
I would say Christmas. I feel like it would be the holiday push. Like, oh, well, now you can buy the complete Diablo 3.
And the beta's finally over,
and we've got PvP. I think I said that originally when the game went live and you did the little,
predictions?
Yeah, I think I said it was going to come out around Christmas. I might be wrong, but I feel like I had said that.
I'm not going to go back and check.
I'm right.
Your word
okay,
for
good.
Yep.
There you go. Okay, guys, thanks for your time. You've been listening to the Diablo Podcast. We are online at diablopodcast.com.
Moo.
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 Well,